What's going on, everyone? It has been a while since I've made one of these videos. I think the last time I made a video kind of giving you my overall experience in the game was when I was at 10 billion combat power. I want to say that was like 2 or 3 months ago in terms of last time I made a video on this, but I can't remember exactly. That jump up from 10 billion to 25 billion or 30 billion or so was really quick, mainly because I got access to, upgrading my Dragon Girl still. Now that I can't upgrade my adventure, it takes a lot longer to get combat power comparatively, but there's still a slow grind to it. And I want to just go over some things that I learned that are now starting to affect me because I am a long-term player. Something that is really, really important to kind of notice about yourself or notice about your strategies is there's a lot of things that set you up for success for sure. And while some of these could be minor in general, if you know about them, you might be able to adapt your plan at whatever stage of the game you're in. And that's kind of what the goal of today's video is. So we're going to dive right in and first talk about S rank gear. I think this is the biggest hole my account has right now, and this is partly due to my ambition about swapping over weapons. This is partly due to me not prioritizing the S rank gearboxes, and it's also just a factor of being limited on prioritization because I am a buy to play player. Just for those of you that don't know, I bought the limited card or lifetime card rather, and I have the ad-free card. So I get the extra gems. I don't have to watch ads, and then I get a little extra energy and gems per day, but I don't buy anything else in the game. And so I'm not buying S rank gears. I'm not buying extra currency for the events or anything like that. And so what ended up happening is as I'm progressing, my number one priority was mythic weapon. And I still think that should be your number one priority. But after that, there was a lot of prioritization on legendary keys. There's a lot of prioritization on, the wishing scrolls and things like that. And while I do think those are very, very high priorities, some of them can take a backseat to some of the S rank gearboxes. And in some cases, those not even in the same shop, but I just didn't prioritize it enough over brand boxes or things like that. And what ended up happening is, yes, I have my mythic sky splitter into my aileron sword, right? But if I look, well, now I've got a bunch of these judgment rings and I still don't have my mythic judgment ring, which is even more of a bigger problem right now because of the double S introduction. Obviously, when I first started playing, we didn't have this. So mythic gear, while important, wasn't like immensely important. But now with the double S equipment, you definitely get a lot less value out of this if you don't have your mythic equipment. Having mythic equipment unlocks that kind of arcana level, and that is huge for your overall power in the game. So that's definitely something that I had wished I had prioritized a little bit more and gotten more of those S rank gearboxes. Right now, I need 3, 6. So I need 6 total to get my 2 legendary double S or my legendary judgment rings, and then I'm gonna need 2 more judgment rings that are legendary. So I need 4 more judgment rings to bring my current judgment ring to mythic right now. So I'm still 4 off. So if I had just collected 3 or 4 more boxes, which by the way, I basically never prioritized this because S rank weapon boxes were more relevant, or this elite pack was more relevant, or whatever it was, I could have helped my account quite a bit. And that kind of leads into my next lesson that I've learned overall, and that's focusing way too hard on one upgrade. And this really comes into play with the brands. I still think the mythic weapon is something you should prioritize above all else. This is going to be the biggest boost in your account, and it will pay for itself in the long run. But other things, like for example, the mythic Joker, which is a great upgrade, no doubt in my mind, can definitely take a backseat. Brands, heroes, some of them are incredibly powerful and definitely worth taking to mythic. But you'll have to realize what your bottlenecks will be later on. Like getting +1, +2 Joker and a mythic tier isn't actually all that powerful compared to maybe a mythic gear piece or whatnot. And so some of these prioritizations that I decided to make could have been better spent on inheritance books, or could have been better spent on S rank gearboxes, or kind of decisions like that. And this also applies to certain, various different really event rewards is where it comes down to, because that's where your decisions really lie. Some of the events I wasn't able to actually complete because I missed a couple of days, or I wasn't able to do everything in the game. We've got a lot to do nowadays in the game, but really it was, oh, these are the ones that I 100% want, and that causes other bottlenecks. Now, would that have bottlenecked me from, maybe progressing a little bit further early on? Perhaps. But I do think at this stage, there's really only a few things that I really want. And so a lot of the events that come around, they really don't seem as valuable as they could be if I had changed the way I prioritize a lot of my resources in my account. That's not to say the wishing scrolls and legendary keys and things like that aren't extremely important, but just a little bit of additional importance in some other things that I at least didn't prioritize. The next one is timed growth events. And again, we're talking about very things that a lot of people know, but I still had a lesson to be learned with this. Even though, yes, I've been timing a lot of my upgrades around these events. One of the things that I haven't been doing is really maximizing my efficiency from this. So yes, I basically go on every single event that happens to get the full rewards. If you play every single day for the most part, and you are someone who is free to play, you don't like buy any additional packs for a lot of this stuff, you're probably going to make it to be able to get all 4 rounds completed. Something like the mount growth events, you really can't, but that's totally fine. You don't necessarily need to get to the full, all of these rounds completed. But the ones that are, have the leaderboard associated with are pretty important. Remember, getting through them, you're going to get these tickets, the Dark Moon tickets, which are really important to upgrade your mounts. But arguably more important are the gold Dark Moon tickets, especially with the additions that they've added. More specifically, they've added the Sea Hero and the Sea Hero Core. And so that's a whole nother mount that you're going to need to really, really start diving in and getting those gold tickets for, right? So the most amount you can maximize those, the better. And I should have been looking to definitely pop up in the ranking leaderboards just a little bit more, right? There are a lot of times where I'm like 24 on the leaderboard, and I could have dropped another 1K, 2K points and gotten to top 20, got an extra ticket, 100% worth it. Or, I'm sitting really, really close to the top 30 or whatever, and I could have gotten an extra ticket. I'm at 33, same thing. Could have dropped another 1K points, gotten an extra couple of rankings. Yes, there were times that I could have reached like number 3 or number 4. That was few and far between. Most of the time, you're not able to snipe these events unless you've been stacking up a couple of rounds in a row. And if you've been, like, let's say stacking up 2 to 3 rounds in a row, is that really worth it? Because you could have gotten like, let's say 12 tickets instead of the 20, but you're missing out on all the other silver tickets and you're missing out on all the resources. Really a little bit debatable there, but definitely some extra value I could have gained from the timed growth events. And it's something that I really, really feel the slog of these Dark Moon tickets, both the gold and silver version at this point. And then the last lesson that I mainly learned is underrating CC. And this is something that, not every game really benefits from. So depending on the game, you're going to find bosses are completely immune, or certain chapters are just completely immune eventually, campaign stages, whatever it is. And so the full build around CC type of game plan never really was like, yeah, this is what you got to do. Even though I knew CC was powerful, it really comes into its own when you start getting into that mid game / early late game, and you really see how truly powerful it can be. Because before then, you kind of just blitz down your opponents, and yes, CC can win you a couple stages, but it's really not the difference maker. It is the difference maker now. And so there were a bunch of changes that I made over the course of time, make sure I'm prioritizing Leonardo for the triple, trigger of potentially freezing people, making sure I'm getting the icy bubble upgraded and on my character, just things like that. Or even the ghost inheritance, right? I was using the Ranger legacy just a little bit before, and before I made that previous video. And well, getting that CC, getting the ignore control immunity and all those other associated upgrades was incredibly important for the account. And it's not something that you should really underrate. I think one of the biggest things is, when you're looking at CC, you're like, well, is this ever going to fall off? It might, but they just added a bunch more chapters. And if you're free to play, or if you're someone who's like a buy to play player like myself, it's going to take you a long time before your build gets outscaled. You want to change it to something else. And even in PvP, even if they do have the, I forget the accessory that people have been running, the double S rank one that allows you to avoid some CC. We're going to go ahead and find it right here. The Ice Soul Guard, which comes from the Proof of Glory. That's what I was looking for. Yes, it can immune your freeze and ignore freeze and things like that. Who cares? if you're free to play, if you're a low spender, you're not going to be competing in PvP anyways. And even if you do want to mid max it, that's so late in the game. You should really be prioritizing PvE because that's how you get extra value, how you progress deeper into PvP as well. You can't have one without the other in terms of PvP and PvE, right? You need PvP to progress PvE because PvP, you need to just play it and you're going to get the divine cubes and things like that. But in order to actually truly be strong in PvP, you need to progress PvE so you can actually progress your overall account and actually compete against other players, right? So they kind of coincide with each other, but one of the best ways to get stronger in PvP is to progress PvE. And so you just need to focus your build on CC. You need to be focusing on everything that's going to progress all of the content that's in the game, and then you'll just be stronger by nature and be able to benefit in PvP as well, if that's something that's appealing to you. And it's not even necessarily something that's appealing to me because I know how these games work, and I know that there's never going to be a point where I'm actually going to be able to compete, especially when you consider like the martial arts tournament. I mean, look at these guys, right? these guys are at the top of the leaderboard, right? 1.24 trillion. Yeah, I'm not touching these guys. It just is what it is. You know, they are 20 times more strong than I am in terms of just straight up combat power, more than 20 times more strong. I'm not going to be able to do anything against this. So yes, and this is where the actual winning truly matters. So I just need to be focusing more on everything that's going to be PvE related. Even though I have these pipe dreams of maybe changing my build and maybe doing something else, it's just not going to happen. It's not. So definitely underrated CC and overall in the build and the skills I chose in chapters and things like that. There are definitely some other things that I learned over the course of time, and I've talked about them in previous videos. These are just some minor things because overall, I think the account is actually in a decent state. I know there's people out there that have progressed much faster than I have. I just kind of learned as I went ahead and gave some pieces of advice that I thought were pretty solid, and they have been. And there's some that I would definitely adjust with not only the changes and the updates and everything like that, which have drastically changed the game since we first started making videos for you all, but also how I would have played it overall. And that's just something that you learn as you play more. And there's always regrets or things that you could have changed to make things a little bit better here, a little bit better there, something that might have helped your account overall because this thing happened, etc. And at the end of the day, it's all about fun. And sometimes messing up and trying to recover, or maybe not even messing up, but having a little bit of a longer road is the game plan. And that's kind of the last thing that I was just going to mention is it really depends on how long you're playing the game, right? If your goal is to just play for a little while, have some fun, then your strategies, your game plan is going to be a lot different than mine, at least. Because, well, I've been playing for quite a while at this point, at least it feels like. I wonder what my first video was. I actually don't even remember on this channel when my first video was, but someone will let me know in the comment section down below, I'm sure. Thanks for watching, everyone. Enjoy the 1 year anniversary. Enjoy the video, and I'll see you all for the next one.